Philippines, and Britain's Conservative Party suffers a setback in European Union elections. But first, the American ambassador to Japan says the United States is confident North Korea will not go to war if international sanctions are imposed over its nuclear program. But the Japanese Prime Minister says Japan will only cooperate in non-military sanctions. As John Shovelin reports from Tokyo, Tsutomu Hata told Parliament Japan would find it difficult to provide logistical support during an attack.
Prime Minister Hata told the Diet Japan couldn't get involved in any military missions. At the same time, the US military based at Wonju, 130 kilometres east of Seoul, was showing off their 18 Apache AH-64 attack helicopters. It's the first time since the helicopters were deployed to South Korea they were shown off to the media. While the show of military preparedness went on, former US President Jimmy Carter arrived in Seoul on his unofficial diplomatic mission. Mr. Carter will hold talks with President Kim Young-sam of the South before travelling to Pyongyang and talks with President Kim Il-sung.
A draft resolution on sanctions is expected to be distributed among members of the UN Security Council this week. But as the threats and diplomacy continue, many South Koreans are praying for peace.
Sunday service at the Yoido Full Gospel Church. Here, as in many South Korean churches today, there were special prayers for peace at a time when tensions run high. The pastor says North Korea is now blocking our freedom with the nuclear card it is playing. We pray that world leaders find the patience to solve the problem. Attention is being focused on one former world leader, Jimmy Carter, who arrives here tomorrow and then travels to North Korea, topped all the national newscasts. Reports that communist dictator Kim Il-sung requested to meet with Carter are seen as indications of a possible shift in North Korea's 15-month refusal to open its nuclear facilities to international inspection. But that possibility hasn't affected Seoul's decision to support limited sanctions against the North or to continue preparing to defend itself. Today, anti-aircraft guns in the city were camouflaged as the military dug in and waited. Some fear the crisis over nuclear inspection could take months to abate, and the issue of North Korea's nuclear weapons program even longer.
The key litmus test will be after Kim Il-sung passes away, then there's going to be significant political change in North Korea. And then and only then can we say that the nuclear issue would be resolved.
In the Philippines, officials say Muslim rebels in the south of the country have freed 20 Christians they've been holding since last Wednesday. But a Catholic priest is still hostage. The release follows threats that government troops would launch a new offensive unless the captives were freed.
The 21 Christian workers were among 74 people abducted last week by Muslim guerillas. The hostage drama has so far left 15 people dead. Mourners marched in heavy rain to bury the victims after a funeral mass. For some, the emotion was too much to bear. The brutality of the murders has sparked outrage among church leaders.
I said all these things to God and I thought I heard him say quietly.
In a bid to end the crisis, government negotiators visited the guerrilla enclave at the weekend, reporting the hostages appeared in good health. Scores of foreign missionaries have been kidnapped by Muslim forces in the past 2 years. The military has blamed most cases, including the latest, on forces linked to the Muslim fundamentalist group Abu Sayyaf.
From a force of 500 were more bandits, 47 assaulted firearms.
The Burmese military claims to have killed at least 32 guerrillas and overrun 2 camps belonging to a Golden Triangle drug lord. Army officials say they've seized a large quantity of arms and ammunition from the camps where 600 of Kun Sa's troops were based. Burma's state media says 17 government soldiers were also killed in the weekend operation. More than 200 Burmese troops have been reportedly killed in fighting with troops loyal to the drug lord in the past month. Flooding in southern China has killed at least 42 people and left more than 100,000 stranded. Authorities say the worst flooding was in the Guandong province, where 24 people were killed and 16 others are missing. Air Force planes have been dropping emergency supplies of food and medicine to assist the survivors. The damage bill from the storm, which brought wind speeds of up to 100 kilometres per hour, is estimated at $586 million.
In Cambodia, members of the Khmer Rouge have arrived in Phnom Penh for a second round of peace talks with the Cambodian government. The talks, scheduled for Wednesday, follow a previous round hosted by King Norodom Sihanouk in North Korea last month. But when asked to comment on the meeting, Cambodia's co-prime ministers were pessimistic of it reaching an agreement. India's slow justice system has caused a scandal in the country's jails, with people often held for years without trial. Most of the 9,000 inmates of New Delhi's Tihar prison are still awaiting their day in court. Now, more than 100 foreigners have had enough, and they're demanding a speedy trial or immediate release.
Tihar Jail. It's Asia's largest and infamous for its terrible conditions. This is where the inadequacies of India's legal system are startlingly apparent. Over 90% of the jail's almost 9,000 inmates are still awaiting trial, and it's not unusual for prisoners to spend 5, 6 or more years here before their case is decided. The situation is particularly dire for the more than 100 foreigners. They're refused bail for fear they'll skip the country.
So even if you're acquitted after 6 or 7 years, what good is it? You might as well have been punished. You might as well have been sentenced.
This woman has been here for 4 years already, and her case still hasn't been decided.
I mean, they just don't want to let us out, whether or not we're guilty or innocent.
This Canadian woman wants to remain anonymous. She's already been here 6 months. Like most of the foreigners, she faces drugs charges for the possession of a few grams of hashish.
You're living in this hellhole of a jail. You can't eat the food. People are fighting every day.
But the prison authorities are powerless to do anything. The real problem lies elsewhere. The country's courts are clogged, and add to that the notorious Indian bureaucracy, and it's easy to see why the accused languish in jail for years. Many have been held for periods longer than the sentence they would receive upon conviction. The foreign prisoners say in a joint appeal to India's President Shankar Dal Sharma that they should be freed on bail if the government does not set up special courts to try them.
Britain's Conservative Party has suffered a severe setback in European Union elections, but there was an unexpected boost for President Helmut Kohl's German government. The results of voting in 12 countries across Europe are being closely analysed for domestic implications.
The European Parliament has very little real power. It can't make laws of its own, and although it can veto decisions of the executive, it never has. Consequently, in the eyes of Europe's voters, it doesn't matter very much. Far more important, the chance to lodge a protest vote against their own national leaders. In Britain, that means Prime Minister John Major. His Conservative Party's share of the vote in Europe has slumped dramatically. If repeated in a general election, the Conservatives would be decimated. Senior party figures are urging calm.
I warn you against writing the Tory party off. We can recover, we will recover, and we will recover under John Major's leadership.
In Spain, too, the voters have been taking their revenge. Spaniards punished the González government after a series of corruption allegations. In Germany, the poll is seen as a dress rehearsal for national elections this October. Chancellor Helmut Kohl's party did far better than expected and has boosted his hopes of re-election. In Italy, too, the Berlusconi government has surged forward since its narrow election victory in April. In Austria, a resounding 2/3 of the electorate voted yes to join the Union. That makes it far more likely that Sweden, Norway and Finland will also vote yes in similar referendums later this year. Nevertheless, across the continent, the impression was of apathy. In Portugal, for example, a long holiday weekend and sunshine kept many voters on the beaches. The dream of a strong, united Europe is one thing. Getting Europeans interested enough to vote is another.
In Haiti, the military-backed president has declared a state of emergency, claiming his country is threatened with invasion. His late-night message on national radio and television followed the US announcement of more sanctions, including a ban on financial transactions and commercial air traffic.
Haïtiens, Haïtiennes, Haiti's military-backed president, Emile Jonassin, declared that now was the time for Haitians to unite, withstand the embargo, and oppose a possible military invasion. He said if we had the atom bomb, everyone would respect us. The 81-year-old Jonassin urged the people to fight to the death to resist any foreign intervention. After that, Haitian national television showed a film depicting the 1904 slave uprising against the French, which led to the founding of Haiti as a nation. Despite the state of emergency, this seemed like any other Sunday in Port-au-Prince. There were no soldiers on the street. Many people were unaware of their government's declaration.
I don't know anything. I don't understand anything about it.
I don't know about these political things. I serve God, and I'm comfortable with his decisions.
But some members of the Catholic Church who have been critical of the government say this is now a dangerous time for Haiti.
The rulers of Haiti want to go to war.
This afternoon, the American ambassador to Haiti called the military's action a desperate move.
Dying gasp of a spent force in this country, because the force in this country that's going to win is going to be the force of democracy and participatory government, where at last the people can get on with their lives in a framework of constitutional order.
The man, considered by some of the world's Orthodox Jews as the Messiah, has died in New York. A power struggle has already begun to replace Menachem Schneerson as spiritual leader of the ultra-Orthodox Lubavitch sect. But some of his followers are waiting for his resurrection.
It was a funeral the likes of which New York had rarely seen. Tens of thousands of ultra-Orthodox Hasidic Jews in a frenzy of grief for their spiritual leader. For many, the emergence of the coffin was just too much. As people stumbled, it was a miracle no one was trampled to death. The outpouring of grief was for this man, the 92-year-old leader of the Lubavitch sect, Menachem Schneerson, regarded by his most devout followers as the Messiah.
We've lived with the reality for the last 2 years that he, in fact, is the Messiah.
He died last night of complications arising from a stroke. Within minutes, the Lubavitch compound in New York's Crown Heights had become a shrine. Today, thousands of male Hasidic Jews filed past his body. He was one of the most significant Jewish leaders this century, and among those to pay tribute were some of New York's most powerful politicians.
The Rebbe, whatever else people believe, was an enormous truth.
To his followers, the death of the Rabbi leaves a void.
My strength, my pillar, my teacher, the one who literally taught me how to wake up every single morning.
Menachem Schneerson was the 7th Rabbi of a dynasty which dates back 200 years. But this time there's no logical successor, and a political struggle within the Lubavitch movement is a distinct possibility.
Already the pragmatists are lining up against the ultra-religious.
He's irreplaceable.
Nonetheless, a successor is expected to be in place before the end of the year.
For the first time in history, the head of Britain's domestic security service, MI5, has spoken publicly about its operations. The service has traditionally been shrouded in secrecy, but MI5's Director General has discussed in public its success in the fight against terrorism.
Stella Rimington emerged from the shadows, determined to banish some of the myths that have surrounded MI5. The security service, she said, was an important plank in the defence of civil liberties. MI5 is Britain's domestic security agency, and its 2,000 staff have the job of defending the nation against espionage, subversion, and above all, terrorism. In her lecture tonight, Stella Rimington said 4 out of 5 terrorist attacks in Northern Ireland were stopped through advance intelligence. MI5 had also prevented a number of Middle Eastern states from murdering their opponents in Britain.
Members of Islamic terrorist groups and terrorists from the Indian subcontinent have been identified and their plans disrupted.
Mrs. Rimington said her staff tapped telephones and bugged conversations, but apparently referring to the Camilla Gate tapes, which were said to have involved the Prince of Wales, she denied that MI5 routinely monitored people in the